Hogstye.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to a victory episode of the Hogstye. It's not Hogstye Late Night. We are not doing that ever again. I would have been happy, but it would have been exhausting if we
would have also been intoxicated.
Actually, no.
You mean I missed that opportunity?
I was sober.
Yes, you missed that opportunity, Dave.
I was looking forward to that.
We had some crazy Hogstye Late Night episodes.
Yeah.
I recorded one in my garage because I didn't want to wake everybody up, and there was no better place for it. And
yeah, I would do them in the basement usually, so my wife wouldn't be woken up.
I think I might have done one on the porch once, I think.
Unfortunately, with the way that my voice carries, there's no safe place to go for me, so I'd wake everybody up anyway.
Yeah,
well,
you sound like a loud person.
Our buddy Matt Cones does do Seasons of Discontent in his garage.
He does all the time.
Yeah.
But he's out in the boonies anyway. Like, his garage is probably 50 feet from his house for all we know.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, he lives pretty far out.
Are you going to play Hail to the Redskins, Alex, or not?
We can play it right now. How about that? I got to make a note to put Hail to the Redskins.
Because you've forgotten sometimes. I've said this, and Alex doesn't remember. So.
I remember, most of the time we mention it.
Most of the time.
Yes. All right. Won a game. First off, we should start. Let's just start with that was a great win for Washington. Probably one of their biggest wins. People have said it's one of the top 3 of Ron Rivera's time here in DC.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
I can honestly say this much. This was the first game in a couple seasons that I found myself legitimately rooting for that team to win. Mm-hmm. Because it was it was a great game to watch. It was fun to watch.
Yeah.
Taylor Heineke, I don't know why the fans there's some fans out there just poops and just dislike the guy.
Yeah.
Mark, looking at you, Mark Tyler, who is a friend, but Mark is really negative about him. But just have fun with it. Just watch the guy. He's fun to watch. Is he going to win the Super Bowl? No. But Taylor Heineke makes that game interesting. But point is, for a day, I was a Washington fan again, and it felt good, because it was just fun game to watch.
It was. They played hard. Not just Heineke, like Brian Robinson was gritty. Has to take off his Flyers jersey and put on a Brian Robinson jersey.
Well, it was the first game.
That's the level of play.
Yeah, it was the first game in a while that Washington played a full 4 quarters of honest, legitimate NFL football.
Mm-hmm.
Usually these wins, they escape with a win one way or the other. And this was not that. They really look like a legitimate team. I don't know if they just had a good day, if they're rounding in a form, if Ron Rivera's motivated them or what. But if they played like this, they won't go 16-0. But if they played like this, they wouldn't be an embarrassment anymore.
Well, I think the most impressive part, was obviously Scott Turner came in with a game plan to exploit the weakness of Philadelphia, and he stuck to it all game long. You weren't seeing him trying to push the ball downfield when he didn't have to, and he let everything come to him in that offense, and everything just clicked. Everything just kind of came together, and yes, Brian Robinson Jr. definitely had his breakout moment of the year. Now, granted, I think his yards per carry average like 3.8.
Well, I'm going to talk about that here.
I'm sure Steve has the numbers there.
Oh, I do. Go ahead.
You're right about Scott Turner. The first half of the first quarter, he was a little bit conservative. I felt like I was kind of the one thing that my pet peeve with Scott Turner for a while now has been how predictable he is on second downs. And, I was starting to track that pretty well. But then, like, about, I think, the 5th second down, he started changing it up. It wasn't a draw run. Everything had been run a draw on second down. And then he stopped doing that. And it was, let's do a quick pass to Terry. Let's do a slant route. Let's maybe do a screenplay here. Let's run an end around. Like, he was doing different things all of a sudden on those downs. And I think that throws a team off. You can't be predictable on any down anymore.
Right.
Like, he's running something when he would do that, the predictability stuff. That's what you would do in the 90s.
Well,
it doesn't work anymore
about this game.
Credit to him for changing that up.
Yeah, I mean, what was ironic about this game is the running game really wasn't successful.
No.
You
not
know,
not from a yards per carry
well,
perspective.
see, this is what's interesting.
It was successful, but it was effective on
Well,
third and short.
3.3 yards per attempt, Brian Robinson, 3.1 Antonio Gibson, 49 carries, which includes 5 Taylor Heineke runs. If you notice, the time of possession was way, way, way off balance. It was like 41 to 19 or something.
One of the most lopsided in history.
Well, the reason is the running game was not successful. They converted a bunch of third downs. All these drives are really, really long drives. Not all. A lot of them were really long drives. And the reason was the running game was like grinding it out. It felt like 1981. Again, it wasn't a case where they were getting 6 yards of carry and just running all over these teams. They had a game plan. They stuck to it. Why? What did we tell you guys? We're smarter than you think, people out there. We told you last week, Philadelphia's weakness was the run game.
Yeah.
Furthermore, when you have Jalen Hurts, you want to keep Jalen Hurts off the field, which they did both. And so they were smart enough, and Scott Turner was smart enough to stick with it. Because how many times have we seen Washington? They get about 10 carries at like 2 or 3 yards per carry, and they're done with it immediately. Just throw it in the trash. The fact that they did not do it this time and stuck with it and grinded out these like 15-play drives, a couple of them, that was the best thing they could have done.
Yeah, I think almost every scoring drive was over 10 plays for Washington last week or Monday, not last week.
In fact, I think it was like the third drive of the first half, I think it was, or second drive, where they showed that drive was like 16 plays, which was more, and that one drive alone was more than the total plays that Philadelphia did the entire first half alone.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah. And look, that is a very old school mentality in a lot of ways. You're playing keep away at that point.
But
the whole
worked
game.
this is what they needed to do for this particular game, and so I thought it was brilliant actually. And so let's see. So other important stats of note.
Let's start with Terry. That was a good stat.
Yeah, that's what I was going to do. Is 8 for 128, 16 yards per catch, 11 targets, along a 41. His best game of the year, and most importantly about that, the guy on the other side is an elite talent.
Yeah,
Darius Slay shut him down multiple games. This is the first time in a while that Terry McLaurin has taken advantage of a team with elite corners. And what I was looking at before we came on the air here is the NFL receiving rankings and stats and stuff. So McLaurin is 8th in the NFL in yardage, 737 yards. In terms of receptions itself, not great, 46, which is ranked 23rd. But his yards per reception is up there. 16 yards per reception on the season is 7th. Catch percentage is way low, but part of that is they've had a quarterback that underthrows people and everything else, as we know. So, but point is, this is one of Terry's better seasons.
Top 10 numbers.
Oh, right? Yeah, they are. Absolutely. Yeah. Most of them are.
Yeah. I mean, he had a great game. I think Curtis Samuel had a good game. The thing is, because this is not a big yardage explosive offense, it's more about, are you picking up first downs? Are you, when you get the ball, are you doing something good with it each time? And I think we saw effectiveness from a lot of different guys there, this week. There's still issues. Logan Thomas.
It's not a good offense. It's not a good offense. It's not a good offense.
No,
they did well for this game, and it worked for their opponent.
Right.
They have risen out of the basement on scoring percentage now, though.
That's nice.
They are now ranked 29th in scoring position, which is
they
better
jumped
than
2
32.
spots.
Yeah.
That's nice.
And to your point about the offense, yeah, I agree. It's not a very good offense, but they have the pieces in most cases to take advantage of particular teams' weaknesses going down the stretch. Like here, Brian Robinson, only what, 3.3 yards a carry, you said?
3.3, yeah.
3.3. But the biggest aspect with Brian Robinson Jr. was on those third and shorts. And that's what helped keep them drives. Like the running game was effective. It wasn't great, but it was effective. and it kept the drives going. It kept the defense wondering what they were doing on third down. So now they were able to do screens or quick slants, whatever, because they're bunching up the box. But they also have the weapons in terms of, like, say, Curtis Samuels, that they have a team to where if it's a good defensive front, but they don't have a good linebacking core, you can utilize Curtis Samuels on jet sweeps, reverses, stuff like that and everything, and you force that defense to spread out more and push back, and now you take away some of that defensive front, and then you can start being a little more effective in the passing game with better protection using Curtis Samuels in that sense. I think they have certain tools. I mean, not every situation, but there's enough to where they have the right pieces to take advantage and be able to control the clock, grind the ball down the field, and do what they need to do. It's not going to always work that way, but I'm just saying they have the ability to do that.
Well, this is the first game all year that they've converted a lot. They've had a significant number of conversions on third down.
Yeah.
And this is the first time in years. Actually, they've been bad on third down for years.
Yeah.
And this game, they did it very well. And you guys kind of said it. It's, they use the run game. This is like football 101 here, but they use the run game to set up options on third down.
Yep.
Imagine how that works. If you just stick with one of my biggest complaints about this team on the field is they just abandon the run game constantly. Jay Gruden did it. Scott Turner's done it.
Right.
This game, they stuck with it, and good things happen.
I wonder if, and we'll see if this continues as a trend for the next few weeks. Early on in this season, there was something that I kept on picking up on from when I'd hear players speaking, coaches speak, where they were always talking about big plays, explosive plays. They were obsessed with we need to be a big play offense. You clearly are not that. And I'm wondering if maybe they're finally embracing, we just need to start getting first downs first. You can get one or two big shots. You can get that. Taylor Heineke's good for one 40-yard pass. He's also good for one deep interception. But you'll get one of those. But other than that, just be a move the chains team for a while.
Maybe they.
The ironic part of that is we just got done playing a team where, if you look back at last year, first half of that year, they tried to be that big play, push it down the field offense with Jalen Hurts. It wasn't working. And it was, I think, like week 8 or week 9, Philadelphia changed the script, started running the ball, and they were much better going down the stretch with the defense they had, and they were able to grind out games, and they got into the playoffs because of it. Now, am I saying that we could do the same thing? And, maybe not, but it's just, you found your identity. You know what you need to do going forward. Now, will they continue that every week? And maybe it benefits and makes a push for that 7th playoff spot.
3.3 yards per attempt is not sustainable. Okay.
It's not.
It worked against the Eagles in particular because of the way the Eagles defense worked, and it was what they needed to do. But they can't do this against every team and win a bunch of games. They have to figure out how to get a productive running game. And the offensive line stinks for sure. Brian Robinson, frankly, is disappointed in terms of just statistical production. For me, he's disappointed a little bit, understanding he got shot and all that stuff. But one way or the other, if this team is going to be a good team, they're going to have to figure out how to get somebody who can average like 4.5 yards a carry.
Well, see, it's
by hook or by crook.
It's funny you mentioned Brian Robinson, because I was going to mention that, because yes, I do agree. He's been pretty disappointing. But he spoke a couple weeks ago.
Also had like Chuckles the Wonder Clown, as the guard and center, and
And they don't have a good block. I know everyone likes to say Bates is a good blocking tight end. There are no really good blocking tight ends anymore. There's no fullbacks anymore. Like that's part of the problem too.
Somebody go see if Mike Sellers wants to come back.
Mike Sellers probably could kick the ass of most of the guys on this team still.
Probably could.
He was a bad man.
But when it comes to Brian Robinson, I do remember what you said a couple of weeks ago. It's going to take time for him to get himself mentally back to where he was. And I'm thinking maybe, hopefully, this was that game, because he was not only just running with with authority. He was running with power in this game. I mean, he carried Fletcher Cox into that end zone for that one touchdown.
Oh, he did.
I'm hoping this is the moment where he mentally flips that switch now, and all of a sudden now it's just all his instincts come in, and now it's just, now it's no longer thinking about the knee anymore. It's just hitting the hole, driving through, putting my pads down, and sorry if you're in my way, but I'm knocking you over anyway. Maybe we start getting that running back. These next couple of weeks, we'll find that out. Hopefully that happens that way. But like you said, Steve, it hasn't been like that to this point. It's been disappointing. And hopefully that script can be flipped, and maybe mentally he might be there. We'll find out.
Well, and by the way, he was also smart enough to reach out and physically move his arm to get the ball over the goal line too, which was a veteran move there.
Yeah, that little twist move he made to do it, to have the space, was really good.
Well, okay, so what other stats are there's frankly not a lot of other stats that are all that interesting in this game.
Taylor Heinicke did not have a good game. I know that.
17 for 29, 211 yards. Quarterback rating, that's QBR. Quarterback rating of 66.9 because no touchdowns, one interception. Curtis Samuel.
Another horrible interception.
And that fumble. We can't forget the fumble.
We'll get to that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Curtis Samuel's only 4 for 12 rushing and 2 for 28 receiving. I continue to not understand what Cam Sims did to tick off his coaching staff. I just flat out don't get it.
Yeah.
1 target. And on defense, I mean, there's really nothing interesting on defense at all. Jamin Davis, leading tackler, 9 with 5 solo.
Well, the defense wasn't out there that much. That's part of the problem.
And it's not a problem. I mean, it is.
The thing that I remember.
Well, St. Jude did a nice job against A.J. Brown in this game, because he was on him most of that game, and he only had, I think, 4 targets in that game?
4 targets, one reception, 7 yards on 4 targets.
The PI that we'll probably want to talk about a little. The thing I was going to say, though, that I picked up on, it was a very quiet game for the most part for John Allen and Daron Payne. It felt like whatever Philly was scheming, they were just playing don't go up the middle. Like they didn't. They had 1 sack, I think, between the two of them.
Washington, Montez Sweat had the sack.
Oh no, that was Montez who had the sack.
And I think it wasn't really till like in the fourth quarter when you start really hearing them talk about Allen and Payne down the stretch on the last couple of drives for Philly.
Yeah,
that was about it, really. I think they designed a lot of plays away from them. I did notice that quite a bit. They didn't run much up the middle, and they tried getting Hurts a little more out of the pocket instead of trying to keep that in the. It's just, you're right
Smart
about that.
Move by them. I mean, why stand in there when that's where the team strength is right now?
I don't want to rain on anybody's parade here, but the other thing that has to be said, and Alex, you alluded to it, the referees in this game were terrible. Absolutely atrocious. Yeah. And all of the calls favored Washington. Usually it's the other way around. I thought the roughing call against Taylor Heinicke at the end of the game was an absolute just total nonsense call. Ridiculous.
It is, but it
by the letter of the law was a
call on a lot of people.
It shouldn't just be. I think that just flat out shouldn't have been called. And I do think the St. Juice thing was pass interference. I thought both of those controversial calls were pass interference. The one on the Eagles and the one on Washington.
Yeah. The one that I think the Eagles got, honestly, was when there was that pick play that they called against Washington, and what was that, to Curtis Samuel, the pass?
Yeah, and they called the pick on Jahan Dotson, I believe.
Yeah.
Yes.
Dotson couldn't have done anything. He was being held in that spot when he got called for the pick.
And when he tried to clear, the corner was right behind him, pushed him right back into the corner anyway.
That's what I mean.
There was nothing he could have done.
Holding him into the pick, basically. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's funny you mention the officials because, of course, being here in Philly, that's the first thing that they all try going to. But
right,
my thing is, and I'm sure Alex can recall many times me tweeting last year, and sometimes this year. But right now, I've grown completely numb to the officiating the last couple of years. because it's not. It's if I'm not seeing it against us, and I'm not seeing it for us, it's not just what I see isolated when I watch our games. Every time I watch any game in the NFL, I mean, the overtime game, Buffalo, Minnesota, is a prime example. You know, the pass that Dawson Knox into the end zone. Yeah, that was I mean, the corner never looked back, but just completely went right into Dawson Knox. It should have been first and goal, 1-1. It would, and this was in overtime, and the official standing right there, no flag. Next play, Josh Allen interception, game over. Minnesota wins the game. And you mean and there's no way you can convince me at their first and goal on the 1, Buffalo's not scoring a touchdown. They're scoring a touchdown first and goal on 1, period. And I've seen that
would have been a field goal
at least. And they would have tied it, and they would have continued going on. And I see that almost every game now. I mean, you could go back in my tweet history and me sharing clips of the officiate, because the officiating crew has a Twitter page, and I tag them every time. I'm like, this is ridiculous. I see it every game. To me, it's when you go into every game. I'm sorry, but you're going to have to. You're going to have to be prepared for this, and the officials making these bad calls and finding a way to overcome it. That's just the way it is in the NFL.
Wants to bury them. NFL doesn't care. I mean, the one that really affected this game was the missed, and it affected in Washington's favor was the face mask one that shouldn't have been a fumble.
Correct.
I mean, look, that was absolutely a face mask.
Yeah.
The weird thing that I've realized watching it a few times, and I think I mentioned this to you on Twitter, Dave. If the guy, instead of trying to stiff arm Jamin Davis, had just kept both hands on the ball, he doesn't fumble it, and the face mask probably doesn't even happen, because part of the reason he got the face mask was he's pulling Jamin Davis down with a stiff arm.
Yeah.
So,
and you know what? And like I tell the Philly fans here, I have no sympathy for you, because how many times have we watched Washington, especially against Dallas, constantly get screwed over by bad officiating time and time again? It's happened. I've seen it. It's killed our momentum in the past. You know what? I'm sorry. It sucks. Yes, those calls should have been made. Yes, you're right. The officiating was in our favor. You're absolutely right. But I have no sympathy for you. Sorry.
I would like to. Yeah, well, I don't have any sympathy for Philly and Dallas fans anyway. But what I would like to know, maybe I'll try to get our buddy Nolan from Tampa to somehow figure this out, because he's got this weekly penalty column. I like to know the percentage of bad and or missed calls per team. That's what I want to know, because I think every fan base thinks the refs are against them, right?
You know what you should ask him as well, if he has or if he can get it, per officiating crew, because I was talking with somebody and they said, no, I see what you're talking about, but it's really like the officiating crew that was on that night was one of them in terms of this is what you get with that crew. So
we'll look into that. That may not be doable, but we'll look into that.
It's very hard to get it accurate, because you can't just look at penalties either. You have to look at missed calls, and there's a lot of things that
there's
it's
not going
in
to be the objective data to do it, but we might be able to get something.
Yeah. I remember years ago one of those stats groups trying to do it, and it was very difficult for them to pull it off.
You end up with PFF situations where they're trying to present things as objective when they're not.
Right. Exactly.
But no one, if you're listening to this, get on this.
Yeah. It would be hard to do, but obviously the NFL does it behind the scenes, because that's how they pick who gets to ref the Super Bowl and who gets to ref the playoffs, right? So there is a super secret club of, very, very old men, I'm imagining, just sitting there yelling at the different crews saying, you did this wrong.
All right. Anyway, so enough whining about the refs. Yeah, they sucked. And yes, they helped Washington this time. Philly, sorry.
It's about time.
Yeah,
they helped Washington.
We got one. All right. Do we want to talk about the defense? I feel like not a whole lot happened. There were some good interceptions and turnovers and some fun stuff there. Honestly, I think we really do have a good duo of safeties right now in Forrest and Cam Curl. This looks like it could be a duo for us in the backfield for a good long time. I'm very happy with what we saw.
Yeah, I think they're great. Yeah, both of them are great. In terms of the defense, look, Washington did what they needed to do, which
Mhm.
was keep Jalen Hurts more or less in the pocket. Don't allow big, stupid plays. Don't have blown coverages. And they did all those things.
Yeah.
And they kept the ball away from them. And that's the best defense, obviously,
Yeah.
is not giving them the ball. And so they didn't have to do too much. They,
Mhm.
that's all. If you have an offense that produces, and that's not necessarily what Washington has, but if you have an offense that produces, you don't need to have the greatest defense in the world sometimes.
Well, and they got a little
Now,
lucky,
now,
the
now,
fumbles.
would you agree that right now, by looking at the progress you see on defense, that if they can add a legitimate middle linebacker to this crew and a reliable slot corner. Now, granted, Fuller's nothing great on the outside. I get that, but
Mhm.
with what St. Juice is starting to look like he's developing into, if you add a slot corner and a legitimate middle linebacker to this, I'm thinking you may have a pretty consistent top 10 defensive unit out of that.
I mean, I wouldn't swear to the numbers, but I mean, it would be a quality unit, put that
Yeah.
way. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and the other problem, of course, is that it appears though Deron Payne will be gone next year, and so they're kind of be sort of starting over in half of that middle of the defensive line. But put that aside.
Actually, I actually think they're going to push and find a way to sign him, which is going to hurt another aspect of that defense, of course. And
Yeah, that would probably mean
I
you lose
think they
Sweat
find a way to
instead.
keep Payne.
He maybe wants to leave. I mean, I don't know. We'll see. I mean, yeah, everybody thought Brandon Scherf was going to stay, and he didn't.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, would you want to stay? Honestly, I mean, I wouldn't.
Yeah.
No, it
Absent
depends.
money. I mean, if you get paid a lot more, absolutely. But why would you? Wouldn't you want to leave a train wreck and
Well,
go to a
if they
better
get
team?
new ownership in, that's a whole nother perspective, depending upon who buys it. And if that happens, so
Right.
that's a whole nother perspective to look at.
By the way, I saw an interview clip with Jeff Bezos, and he was really like cryptic about whether he wanted to buy the team, which sort of implicitly hinted that he was interested. So
Yeah. Well, he's like, oh yeah, I grew up playing football. I love football, and we'll see what happens. Yeah.
And then his wife goes, "I love football." And then later
Girlfriend,
on,
I think, right
just
now.
so you know, I love football.
it
Or
wasn't like a
girlfriend, wife,
flat
whatever
out
it is.
denial. It was sort of a
Yes.
politician's
Steve,
answer.
they've got pictures of him having meetings with Jay-Z, like after they were like, oh, they're talking,
Yeah, I'll never understand the Jay-Z thing. That I don't get it, but
I think the Jay-Z part is just to bring in
I know
some.
what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like I'm just gonna say it because I blurt things out, and it's what I do. The NFL has, for right or for wrong, I don't subscribe to woke politics, but the NFL desperately is like crying and screaming and bleeding for a serious minority owner.
Yeah.
And so to the extent that Jeff Bezos could bring in a well-known dude like Jay-Z, who's kind of personally a slime ball personally, but regardless, they would eat that up. And so that is Bezos's way of bringing in somebody who the NFL already knows and likes and is a minority.
Well, I
There,
mean,
I
he's
said
been working with the NFL for what, 5 years now?
He's
on these
ruined
halftime
several
shows?
halftime shows in a row.
Yeah.
That's what he's done.
and they've not been good.
They've been
just-
horrible. They've been terrible.
Yeah,
I
mean,
don't
the
even watch
audio's
them
always been
anyways. I
bad.
can't even tell you about them.
I
In fact,
haven't watched.
In fact,
them
I get destroyed by this one guy at work because I refuse to watch the Super Bowl halftime show because I'm there to watch football. I couldn't care. I use that time to go get something to eat, get something to drink, and
Mhm.
Well,
when I
mean,
come
like
by,
I
time I'm all
watched-
done, I come back. Second half kicks off.
Like Tom Petty, I watched that one. Prince, watched that one. Springsteen, I'm all
Well,
about
you're a
that.
rock
but,
guy, Steve. I mean,
but,
it makes sense.
but I've always said about the halftime show. I've said this on IJB many times. Mix it up, okay? I'm not a huge country fan, but bring in like Jason Aldean or somebody.
Mhm.
Some like big name. That may not be the right guy, but I mean some huge name country act. We can do that. Bring in Metallica. They are a stadium act.
Yeah.
They're one of the biggest selling bands in the world. Bring them in and bring in some rap group. It's fine. We don't need to have a string of boring, dumb, stupid, lip syncing pop acts year after
I
year
get
after
that.
year.
I've always said we should just always put the latest in human personal flying device technology in every halftime show, just like it was in the first Super Bowl with the dude in the jetpack and the second Super Bowl with the dude in the jetpack. I just need people in jetpacks every
Just
Super Bowl, and
just
that's
dump
it.
the lip syncing bands and have them flying
Just
around a
people in
stadium.
jetpacks flying over the stadium. That's
I
all
would
I care
watch
about.
Now,
that.
see me, I may actually start watching the halftime show for
Yeah,
that.
you're an air guy, man. You would definitely start watching a dude in a jetpack. I want the Rocketeer. That's all I want. Just give me the Rocketeer.
Okay, we're gonna campaign for this. I'm all about it.
I'm talking to two guys who like flying. So
Yeah, I'm a pilot. I'm all for that. I have a pilot's license.
yeah.
In fact, we just got done doing a Veterans Day parade at our work at Bowen here last week, and I had volunteered to walk to march with the Space Force
Yeah, you
flag
mentioned that.
months
Yeah.
ago. So
Yeah.
By the
I
way-
walked with that proudly. I was like, yes.
We had a Space Force guy for in our color guard for our Veterans Day thing at my work. And you guys remember my joke about the Space Force uniforms, and
Yes.
I wanted to say it to him, but I was like, like he's an active captain in the Space Force. I don't want to be a dick.
Since this came up today, right
Yeah.
now, I Googled it while you were talking, and Rihanna is the Super Bowl halftime show. So this is yet another one that I will do something else during.
Yeah, for you, yeah. that's
Another
fine.
lip syncing pop act. It'll be great.
Yep.
You see me, I just want a regular halftime. That's all. I don't want the show. I want to go in there, regular halftime, like regular season. I can't stand the pomp and circumstance. I'm there to watch football, and that's it.
But I'm a huge. I don't know if you know this about me, Dave, but I'm a huge music fan. I'm a musician.
Oh, yeah, absolutely,
and all
sure.
of that, and so I'm all about that. But
Yeah.
they just refuse to bring in any act that I would even be able to stomach.
Yeah. Well, but again, you're also a rock guy mostly.
But I'm also more eclectic than you might think. But the problem is they brought a horrible, atrocious acts in. I thought, who's the lady, the gal with the tattoos who did the Super Bowl in Houston? The blonde.
Pink, right?
No, not her. It's bugging me. Anyway, I mean, there have been pop acts that I thought were decent.
Mm-hmm.
Just not whatever Jay-Z's done has been terrible.
Well, the problem with what Jay-Z has done there, the sound has always been terrible. Like
the acts
it's like
have
they
been
don't hire a
terrible.
sound mixer or something. The Weeknd has one song that everyone knows. I don't even think he played it during the halftime show.
I didn't watch it. I don't know.
I did, but he's got the one song that song that's kind of like retro and do 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 do.
I don't know. You're talking to the wrong.
It's only one
here.
song that everyone knows, and they put it
You're
in all
still
the
talking to
commercials.
the wrong group.
Yeah.
Well, see, what Jay-Z is probably just simply doing, he's just basically bringing in the top 40 that you hear on the radio, just bringing it right on for the halftime show.
Yep.
Well, the top 40
Exactly.
isn't, and it's the most popular downloaded songs, this, that, whatever else, but it's not necessarily
I was
the most
talking about
popular
Lady
group.
Gaga, by the way. She was good.
Lady Gaga.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
I had to Google that too.
Yeah. All right. Why don't we change gears and we'll go from the game that was in Dave's neck of the woods to the game that's going to be in Steve's neck of the woods.
Yes.
What are the odds there that that's what's going on? I watched the Houston versus the Giants game, and you know what I saw from Houston? This basically looks like the Washington Commanders if you just took away all of our receivers.
That's weirdly enough is what I was about to say.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
So we have the same kind of concept there?
Yeah, they're not this similar.
Yeah.
Houston has a lot of worse players. The one thing they do have going for them, they have a running back that is
They have one
succeeding.
good running back and
They have
no
one good player,
anything
period,
else.
frankly. Yeah, Damon Pierce, for those of you who don't know, we're talking about is averaging 4.7 yards per carry. He's the only one doing anything of note.
Yeah, 85
Well, Brandon
yards a
Cooks
game.
can burn you, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, but even Brandon Cooks is not having he's having an okay season, but he's not burning things up. Damon Pierce, who, by the way, was a 4th-round draft pick, rookie,
Mm-hmm.
is doing good. If they didn't have him, this team would be in a huge amount of trouble. They already are in a huge amount of trouble, but they'd be even bigger trouble without him. They would literally not have anybody. I mean, their offense is very low scoring.
Mm-hmm.
Their offense does not get a lot of first downs.
No.
They're not as run heavy as you might suspect. Although Pierce himself has 165 carries, which is way up the list. But the problem is they get behind and they can't dominate a game with a running game because they're always losing.
Right. Yeah. I mean, look, when I was watching the game yesterday. So, by the way, I checked this earlier. Their top receiver would be third on Washington's depth chart, stats wise.
Oh,
And,
can I go back real fast before I
yeah.
forget? Totally neglected to mention Joey Sly.
Oh yeah.
yeah.
Holy
He
Christ!
was
I mean,
our
that
special
dude.
teams player of the week.
Yeah, well deserved. 58-yard kick, 55-yard kick. What was the other one? 40 something.
44 and 42,
yeah.
I think.
Unbelievable
Yeah.
game by Joey Sly. But sorry,
Four
go
for
ahead,
four.
Alex.
You know
I
what?
didn't
We
wanna
didn't even
forget
do. We didn't do game balls. Why don't we do that and then we'll
Okay.
get into Houston a little.
All right.
more.
Well, my game ball for offense is Sly himself.
Okay.
Because that's great. I mean, make 2 kicks over 50 yards in a close, hard-fought
too,
division game.
for it.
That's amen to Joey Sly. And I'm gonna go Jamin Davis. He's kind of
Okay.
rounding in form a little bit. He was the leading tackler on the team, so Sly and Davis for me.
I'm going to go Derek Forrest on defense. I think he is really turning into a very, very nice player for us back there. And like you said, Alex, we have a really nice tandem of safeties forming back there. And offensively, I'm going to give it to Brian Robinson because, he didn't have a great yard per carry average, man. But when we needed him on those third and shorts, he got it every single time. And when you drag a Fletcher Cox into the end zone like you did, yeah, you deserve the game ball. I'll give you that.
We focus on that one, but I think we would be remiss to not mention that nice little 10-yard run where the entire field, it was just a giant scrum and he was pushing the pile.
Yes.
That was a nice one,
that
too.
was great too. Absolutely.
Yeah. I'm with you on Forrest. Forrest is my defensive guy. And on offense, I'm going to go Terry. Sly had a good game. Robinson had a good game. But I'm just going to go with Terry on this one. I think he had a very nice game. All right. So why don't we get back? We can get back to the Texans now. The one thing I want to say is Davis Mills was one of those guys when he was coming out. I really was like, this guy could be the sleeper Kirk Cousins of this draft. I don't know if that's the case anymore. He's still a young player. He still could develop. But, man, he does not have any help to become that, does he?
No.
Yeah.
Davis Mills, I watched this film. I did a little write-up on him. I thought he was a decent prospect. So much a quarterback in the NFL is situational. There's so few, like you throw. I've always said John Elway's the best quarterback I've ever seen. You throw Elway on like any team, he's going to do pretty well. But the vast, vast majority of quarterbacks need to be in the right situation to work. They need to have some talent around them. Davis Mills, one, is in a very tough situation, replacing the whole Deshaun Watson mess and all that. He was never really supposed to start in year one, and they end up kind of forcing him to by circumstance. I thought he was a decent prospect, not a great prospect. But his problem is, what does he have around? He's got Damon Pierce. Right. The end. And that's it. Right. So it's hard to succeed under those circumstances.
And Damon Pierce, for as good of a runner as he is, not a receiving back at all.
No, he's not. No.
I know you got your issues with AG, but he's a good dual threat.
I don't dislike AG. I just mean I think his skills. I think he and Robinson do slightly different things, and it actually kind of works well together as a two-headed monster.
Right. You actually want, if you're going to do a two-back system, you want them to do different things, generally speaking.
Yeah, I'm not. I'm a Gibson fan. I just don't think he's like a traditional NFL power back inside runner, and he's never going to be.
No.
Yeah, I think they have him in the right role now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
He's got like 500 yards, and I think it's evenly split or something like that. It's close to that. But yeah, Pierce is, I think, 700 or almost 800 yards on the ground and only 126 receiving yards. So, he's definitely more one-dimensional, but compared to a guy like Gibson. Yeah, you look at this receiving core, it doesn't scare you. The defense is good, though, for Houston. The defense plays pretty well. Like they stifled, and I know the Giants, aren't exactly a great passing team either, but they stifled that passing game pretty well last week.
I
Well, the
mean,
Giants also don't have much of a receiver at all themselves, if we're
That's true.
Darius Slayton, and he's very
Yeah.
inconsistent.
if you want to say that they're talk about what their defense is better at, then yes,
Mm-hmm.
probably passing. I mean, if you go by metrics like quarterback rating, they're rated ninth in the NFL
Right.
defensive.
I think they're
opposing
last in
quarterback rating.
rushing defense.
Well, they're not. I mean, they're well. It depends on how you measure it. I mean, if you measure it by total yards surrendered, yes. If you measure it by yards per attempt,
Right.
it's 5.2, which is slightly better, 29. So point is, run against this team. That's the point.
Yeah. Well, it doesn't help that they allowed 281 rushing yards by Chicago and 314 yards by Tennessee on the ground.
That's not something Washington's ever going to do.
When is the last time you really remember a team getting 300 yards on the ground? Like, that's pretty rare.
Yeah, a long time ago. I don't. Yeah,
it's crazy.
Yeah. So here are my keys to the game. You guys want to hear my keys to the game?
Sure.
Because I work on these game previews all week. So one, Washington needs to avoid the hangover game. They're coming off an emotional victory on Monday Night Football. Many times, in many circumstances, have we seen many teams collapse and die the week after they get a big win. So that's number one. If they can avoid that, they're halfway there. Two, contain Damon Pierce, as we've talked about. Three, keep the rushing offense going. Stick with the same game plan. Because again, as Alex just pointed out, the Texans are terrible on the ground. The defense is terrible. So if you do those three things, I think there's a good chance to win. The line as of Tuesday night was Washington -3.5 on the road, which is a freaking miracle when it comes to Washington.
Yeah.
They're never favored on any game.
Well, just to piggyback off of that, I agree with all that. So now it's the ball's in, or the decision's right there in Scott Turner's hands. All he has to do is just use the same game plan he did against Philly, against this team. If he just runs that same game plan right there, and if they don't have a delay game when they do a beautifully designed play on a 3rd and short to Curtis Samuels that he probably walks in the end zone on, which drove me nuts on that one, but off of Philadelphia, sorry. But no, yeah, it's if Scott Turner sticks to that game plan. And I think that we have, obviously, after what St. Juice did against A.J. Brown, I know he still has his flaws and stuff. Tell me what receiver is going to wind up shining against him this week. Fuller can take on Nico Collins, I think, without any problem whatsoever. Although I like Nico Collins. He's got some upside. But
he does.
That takes some development right there. And then it kind of frees up Cam Curl to come up and help against the run and try to contain Pierce. I think that's kind of my key right there. I think Del Rio needs to bring Cam Curl up more into that running game to help him support against the run. I think I think John Davis is doing a really nice job against the run, but for someone like Dameon Pierce, you got to have that. You need that second level help with that. And I think if we stick to man coverage on the outside, and you have Forrest or McCain playing deep center field and then bring Curl up as much as
how much
possible.
are they going to stick to man coverage, though?
Yeah, I know.
Are they really going to do that? I don't disagree with you. I think you're right, but are they realistically going to do that? No.
I think because of the matchups, I think it's one of those situations where it's not like you're dealing with a guy. Like you said, their best receiver, you said, Alex, would be number 3 on our team.
Yeah, Brandon Cooks.
Cooks
so
has 391 yards, which is 100 less than not quite 100. It's like 50 less than Curtis Samuel. So,
well, and more importantly, he's only averaging a shade under 11 yards per reception, too.
He has one or two more catches than Antonio Gibson.
Yeah.
Even if you stick to more of the zone and you stick with that, and you just, even that, you can still bring Curl up and help against the run, because you only there's only one guy on that team with speed that can burn you over the top, and that'd be Brandon Cooks anyway. Outside of that, who else do they have? They don't have anything else anyway. Brandon Cooks has to be engaged into the run. He has to be in this game. If they do that, I think they walk away with this game Not like a blowout win, but I think they walk away with this game relatively easily if they do that.
I would honestly put Benjamin St-Juste against Nico Collins just because they're
Size.
both bigger guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that would make sense because Cooks is. I know he's not just a slot guy, but with his size and everything, I think it makes sense to kind of treat him like that. So I would rather St-Juste.
That makes sense, yeah.
I mean, Washington doesn't typically send corners to travel with receivers on a regular basis anyway.
That's true.
I think St-Juste, he did that on the Philly game. He seemed like he was on A.J. Brown almost like majority of that game. It seemed
I
like
didn't
to
notice
me
him
anyway.
following him, but I didn't go back and watch all 22. So
I mean, I could be wrong. It just seemed like he was always on his tail.
it kind of makes sense. The X receiver versus the number one outside corner. I mean, you're going to see that matchup a lot.
It could have also been Philly doing that to him, hoping to get.
Well, it could have been, yeah.
Yeah.
And in terms of Washington's offense, I mean, I like to go back to something Alex has been preaching for like a year with Scott Turner, which is the problem that Alex saw, maybe ahead of everybody, was that there's no identity with this team. There hasn't been an offensive identity. Maybe, just maybe, this is the offensive identity. Maybe they need to stop trying to be the greatest show on turf and embrace what you have. What do you have? A grinded out offense with a quarterback who's gamey and gutsy, who's going to make a few mistakes but can make plays.
Right.
And maybe this is who they are, and if they embrace it, they would be all the better for it.
A lot of
probably Heineke's ideal system.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot. I mean, I think I'd hope you said it right at the beginning, Dave. Just you should start with the same game plan because it will work well probably against this team. One thing that we haven't mentioned with Houston, is there any team that's more obviously been trying to tank this entire season? I mean, I even felt like when they trotted out Lovie Smith to be the head coach, and honestly, the dude, he's got the big beard. He looks like he's, I'll be honest, he kind of looked a little homeless.
He did look like he was a homeless man, I got to say. Yeah.
This just felt like a team that's, not trying this year. So
can I tell you guys something?
What?
I got offered free tickets to this game.
Yeah, you've been.
Did I say that on the air?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. And
I think like 2 weeks. I think 2 weeks in a row now.
Oh, okay. Never mind. I can't remember what I say on the air and off the air.
Yeah, it's all right. Okay, why don't we wrap up? Let's talk about predictions, final scores for this one.
Dave, you go first. I went first on the game ball thing.
I will say 27-13 Washington.
All right.
I'm going to say 24-17 Washington.
Okay. I'm going 24-14. So, I think it's not even, they'll let them hang out a little, just not close.
Well, I don't think Washington's going to score more than 30 points 2 weeks in a row. That's just not going to happen.
And let's be honest, that last score was
a
really
total fluke. Yeah.
By the way, am I wrong? I thought the NFL, you still had to kick the extra point even after time expires.
I want to say that the rule changed on that.
Yeah. I thought I didn't realize if it had.
Well, either that or Vegas gave a call in and say, "Hey, listen, we don't want anyone to hit the over on this. Forego the extra point." I say that because when I was texting my group text with my friends and my brothers and everything, my friend bet the over, and he just missed it by the extra point.
Oh, did he really?
I was like, well, maybe Vegas called and say, "Hey, listen, let's forego the extra point."
Wow.
They have a direct line to the NFL now, so.
Yeah, right.
Yep. All right, let's talk about the lawsuit stuff. I'll just throw out a quick blurb. Now that we've learned that the House is switching from Democrat to Republican, the Republicans have officially said they're killing the investigation into Dan Snyder. We'll talk about that more some other time.
Officially, what Alex is referring to is that's not really an official word. Alex is referring to a tweet by Mark Maskey in which somebody
the ranking member on that
ranking
committee
member said it's over.
Yeah,
that was sort of a media quote, but you have to assume that it is over. Yes.
They've said they were going to do it ever since July. So they said if they got control, they were killing that thing. All right, why don't we talk about the lawsuit? Because I know, Steve, you broke it down pretty well on our site.
Yeah,
Uh,
there is a if you want to
yeah,
read about this, I wrote a column. So I'm not going to go into a ton of detail here, and that's
there's a
really
lot
more
of
of a
disclaimers in that column too, which are very fun.
well, yeah, I mean, you know, and I like it to be said because people have tried this.
Yeah,
Steve Thomas isn't my actual name, okay?
right.
So if when you try to hunt me down, because people have left comments in the comment section saying you're not an attorney, I'm not using my real name, dummy. And this is
Yeah,
why. This is exact. I don't need you showing up at my office complaining about my thoughts on a running back, you know,
right.
which is
You
why
can try to show up at my office and do that, but I've got armed guards
it won't
outside.
go well. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey,
Like
you
who'd we
guys
have
want
on?
to? If
Hmm?
you guys want to come to my office, go ahead. I'm surrounded by Philly fans anyway.
Yeah, it won't go. Like who'd we have? Remember we had that doctor on that time, Alex, who's the who what was his name?
The
It,
one from who was talking about the ankle surgery or for Alex Smith. Is that who you're talking about?
I'm talking about the guy that Jamal found who has a Twitter page who doesn't use a name.
Oh, yeah, I can't remember his
Anyway,
name.
he was a doctor, and that was he had the same problem I did, which is he told us off there, I don't need people showing up at my office complaining
Yeah,
about.
yeah. It was a doctor who's out west.
So
Who,
anyway, so the
yeah,
disclaimer I put in this was I'm not your attorney.
right,
You know, I don't represent these parties, nor did I do any case law research. I simply read this petition. I'm throwing out a bunch of thoughts, and that's
right,
it.
right,
And
right.
that includes here. So anyway, to go over this very quickly, because this is an IJB topic. Um, but the gist of this is that the District of Columbia has filed a consumer protection lawsuit
Hmm.
against the team, Dan Snyder individually, the NFL, and Roger Goodell individually. Now, the District of Columbia has a strong consumer protection lawsuit, or statute rather,
Right.
and sort of the basics of the complaint are that the team, all these defendants, together as a whole, um, misled the public about the investigation into the team
Right.
and the Wilkinson investigation, and then they have misled the public about the team's toxic and hostile work environment. And why that's a consumer protection claim, according to the district, is that prevented the district consumers, meaning the public, from making a fully informed decision about whether or not they want to spend their money.
Sure.
So I'm not a consumer law attorney, but that's a very tenuous claim. Consumer law cases are like, I'm advertising this box of lasagna as having 20 grams of meat and it actually has 10.
Right.
That is more along the lines of a real consumer claim. This is sort of like a once removed consumer claim, because a
Hmm.
consumer claim against the team would have to be like, we're advertising that these are game worn jerseys and they really aren't. That would be
Hmm.
a proper consumer claim. The team never lied about anything. Actually, when it comes to the product presented, they sold merchandise, they sold tickets, they arguably probably misled the public about who they were, but it was all behind the scenes stuff. So I think it's a very weak consumer claim. I think this is more, it's not, they're not going to get sanctioned for it. I mean, it's a real
No.
claim, but I think this is more of a publicity stunt brought on by an attorney general who's at the end of his term more than anything else.
Yeah, it definitely. I mean, that's definitely part of it. And now look, in doing some mild research about the AG here in DC, consumer claims is kind of his background anyway. Like this is what he does.
I mean, I'm
Um,
not saying it's a totally BS claim because it's not. I'm saying it's a tenuous claim. That's what I'm
right.
saying. They kind of had to make this stuff up to fit the facts. It struck me reading this thing as a guy who wants to get in the action. And by the way,
Yeah.
the petition didn't say anything that y'all haven't heard. I'm not going to go into a bunch of detail about it. It told all the same stories we've been talking about for years in here. Cheerleaders, you know, all of it. Dan
Yeah.
Snyder's and hookers and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So
I
that's the
mean,
lawsuit.
honestly, I think that what they were trying to do is almost all right. There was no Wilkerson report. We're just going to file this as the substitute for the report, kind of thing.
Well, I mean, it's not a substitute for a report where they
I
could
know,
do.
but
I mean, if you really wanted to pursue it and cause problems, what you would do is start filing a ton of discovery requests.
sure.
You know, send everything under the sun to the NFL and to the team and see what they'd produce without getting in a giant discovery
Yeah.
fight.
Not to get too in depth. I've been on the receiving end on that.
I've
Many
been on the
years ago.
sending end on those.
Right, but you're
And the
a
receiving
lawyer.
end.
I am not a
Yeah.
lawyer.
Okay.
I've been on the receiving. It is not fun when you get bogged down in that kind of stuff.
I've been in the middle of discovery wars, and
Yes.
well, they're fun for attorneys. I can't deny that.
Yes, you enjoy them. When I get 20 boxes of files from a state government, it's not fun.
Hey, I lost at an appellate court over a discovery fight once. That was a ton of fun. But anyway, so to get back to this, so that's the lawsuit in a nutshell.
Yeah.
What happens from here? The suit is just filed last week. I don't know if anybody's even been served yet. I mean, probably not. That takes a while. And then they'll have a month. I don't know what the DC rule is. I'm not licensed in DC, but usually you have about a month to answer these things. And so you got to figure before we hear anything of note, it'll be a couple months. You know, and then by that time, if the team is sold, my guess is this might just drop it and go away.
Yeah, and to me, it doesn't really change much of anything that happened to this point going forward, anyways.
Not really.
In fact, the only thing it kind of did a little bit was almost it kind of pushed the NFL and Dan on the same side because they also dropped the NFL as being negligent against all this as well, but. Outside of that, I mean,
it's not a negligence claim. I mean, that's a legal term. But what they did is they kind of grouped them all together and said, all you people are kind of ganging together to deceive the public on this stuff for the purpose of making money, which is probably true.
Now, my question to you, though, Steve, I don't know if you'd already kind of answered this already before, is that with this coming out against Dan Snyder and everything else, everything kind of geared towards Dan Snyder. Towards the Washington organization, but Dan Snyder. If he sells this team, does all these suits still hang over the team and to the new owner, and he's responsible handling all this? Or is this something where it just continues to follow Dan, and he's going to have to answer for all this regardless if he sells the team out? Because I would think that that's the case. Wouldn't that push a new potential owner kind of going – because I know you mentioned something like that before in terms of it might make a new owner hesitant on buying the team until this is all settled.
Well, I think it would arguably depress the value of the team a little bit because this doesn't go away. I feel as an example, this lawsuit names Pro Football Inc., which is the entity that owns the team. And then it names separately Dan Snyder as an individual defendant. And so this lawsuit, I mean, again, I think it'll go away, but put that aside for a minute. The lawsuit would continue against the team. It doesn't really so much matter who owns the shares of Pro Football Inc. The entity itself is a defendant. So in that regard, it continues. In that regard, this congressional committee, to the extent they would do anything, which they won't, but, they did refer to the DOJ.
Right.
And so DOJ hypothetically could continue to investigate it. So again, I think it probably affects the value of the team. I mean, if I was bidding on it, I'd say, look, you're going to make me deal with all this nonsense. I'm going to take a shave, X amount of money off my offer. That's typically what happens in this. Now, what's going to happen in practical reality tells me probably this stuff is going to all of it be wrapped up in a neat little bow because you're going to have the Republican Party is not going to let this ridiculous congressional committee go forward. That'll die. DOJ, it doesn't seem like they're doing much with it, and we haven't gotten any word about it. This lawsuit will probably drop, and if not, the new owner will come in and schmooze some folks, and it'll drop. So I think most of the stuff will kind of go away. Yeah. If Dan really does sell the team, I would say next year most of the stuff will probably be gone.
Yeah.
Even if he has to settle, I mean, he could reach a settlement in this lawsuit and come up with a dollar figure, and it would be meaningless to him, and it basically come out of the part that he cut out of his offer to Dan.
Was it you on IJB who was saying that in all likelihood the sale's going to have some money kind of set aside in escrow for settling any of these lawsuits?
Well, I can't use the word escrow, but I mean, the point is what you're saying, sort of what I'm saying, which is you're not necessarily going to have money escrowed, but what you would do is say, if you're going to bid to make up a number, $6.5 billion, in ideal circumstances, I might offer 6.2, instead, or whatever. Pick whatever the right number is,
Right.
and then my argument to the seller would be, you're making me deal with your bad actions, and
Right. And I'm probably going to need the 300 million
Yes.
to clean it up. Yeah.
right, yeah.
Yeah. We'll see what happens. I'm even though, I think we all want to see Dan punished as much as possible. I'm kind of with you, Steve. This is not a very good. It's a thin lawsuit.
Oh yeah. But
Yeah.
it was Chris Larry who was at first laughed a year ago, saying, I'm rooting on IJB. He said, I'm rooting for a guy to make $6 billion. For a guy I hate to make $6 billion.
Just to go away.
Yeah.
All right.
And see, and unfortunately, the worst part, as I mentioned last show, this gives no justice of any sort to the women that had to deal with all this.
No,
even
it
if
really
Dan Snyder goes out, no,
They-
and there's no,
Nothing.
yeah, it's unfortunate that part. Although us fans, we get what we want.
Mm-hmm.
The women that had to deal with all this, they really don't get anything out of it.
There'll be no
Megan and all those
justice.
folks. Yeah. I mean,
No,
I know
no
they were
justice
happy
for
when
them.
they saw this lawsuit and they were out there.
Sure.
But,
But even this is just consumer. I mean,
look, it's not a
if it-
victory lap.
if DC
necessarily.
really wanted
No.
to stir up trouble, they do what I suggested earlier, which is send out a whole truckload of discovery requests,
Yeah.
whole truckload of requests for production, and then you're
Yeah,
going to
I
make
doubt
the
that'll
team, and you're
happen
going to make the NFL try to go get a bunch of confidentiality orders. Ask for Dan's deposition again, and
Mhm.
go dig up former team exec. If they really want to cause problems, they could do that. That would be entertaining at least, and it would all be in the public record, whatever's not confidential.
Yeah. All right. So last topic. I'm gonna just hit you guys with a fun, quick final question before we wrap up the show.
All right.
NFL had their game in Germany, first game in Germany ever, right? Supposedly it was a big hit. 3 million people tried to buy tickets. I don't know if you guys watched any of it, but at one point the whole stadium was singing "Country Roads Take Me Home" for some reason. I don't know why they're singing.
The Germans were singing "Country Roads."
Yeah.
That's funny.
Maybe because Geno Smith went to West. I don't know.
And didn't they have like several 100,000 or 1,000,000 people, whatever, outside the stadium prior to the game that they
It
games
was
hoping to
nuts.
get tickets or something like
Yeah,
that?
so it was a big hit.
Yeah. Yep.
So obviously the NFL is going to keep doing these international games. Here's my question. It's a fun question to you guys because you've traveled. You've traveled the world. I've traveled the world. We're all men of the world. If you could pick a place outside the U.S. to go watch any football game, what city would you want to go watch a football game in? And that's your question.
Well, it's two different questions. I mean, one of them would be, what city would I rather be in, and as a side venture, watch a football game. And the other way to look at it is, what city would be the best one to watch a football game in?
That is two different questions, I guess. Because
So I'm going to go with the latter, because I'm going to go with the latter one. Which city would be the best one to play football in? And
Yeah.
I would maybe say somewhere in South America. And the reason is those fans are passionate about stuff.
Yeah, they do murder like refs for bad calls in like Brazil.
Well, if like you walk up like music events down there,
Sure.
Rock concert stuff. I mean, the people are passionate. So if you could find an audience like that, that's where I'd probably go.
So like an Argentina or something
like that. Yeah.
Okay.
Myself, I'm going to go with a little bit of my heritage and with my stomach on this one. I'm going to go in Florence, Italy.
That'd be a good one.
Because, I mean, granted, the place, and there's probably no place to put a stadium there. I know that, but when I went, because I did a overnight train ride trip down, all the way down through Florence and down to Rome and all that. And Florence is like a perfect central spot, in terms of getting to Rome and Venice and so forth and taking all the sights. The food there was absolutely phenomenal. And by the time kickoff hits, it's right there at the prime time of their siesta when they run, when they're all drunk off of wine to begin with anyway. So there'd be a hell of a lot of fun. They'd be a hell of a lot of fun to be around at a game. It's just be a great time. Great food, great time, awesome wine, everything. And you're a quick shot to any site you want to go see.
Sure.
And plus, Italy is such a beautiful place to be.
Anywhere in the Mediterranean is going to be good food and beautiful scenery.
In fact, if it wasn't for the fact that we made the decision for me to go from active duty into the Guard because of my youngest daughter, if it wasn't for that, we would have pushed to stay in Italy as long as possible, and I'd probably never be on this podcast because I would have taken up residence over there and never came back. So
I didn't know you were a big Italy guy.
Oh, I absolutely, because I was in Aviano my first year, which is on the foot of the Alps right there, and my wife and I, the only thing that we could do on the most part, because I was there as a A1C, travel to Venice. Venice is wonderful. It was cheap to go, but yeah, that'd be my point, my choice.
That's a good one. I like both those. They're both unique, so those are both good answers. As for me, I love Greece. I went there for my honeymoon. I think it would be very good to put a game in Athens, or Olympia, the heart of, the origins of all sport.
That's a good one. Yeah,
that would be a fun one to try and do.
Yeah.
So.
And the other place I'd probably go to, like Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Steve is just picking the most easy, convenient thing he can find. All right, guys, that should wrap us up for this week. We will talk to you next week, hopefully after a win against Houston. Talk to you later.
Yeah. Take it easy.
Bye.